Okay, this is the third week of the end time study, and tonight we're going to focus on the last 7 years. It was broken up into two parts. The first part would be, we have two people, Amy and Charles, that did some research on what the mainstream scholars and what Christians out there typically think of the covenant that's made with many for 1 week, as described in Daniel 9:27, which they typically take as the last 7 years, and they are right on that. And in the second half, I'm going to hand out the timeline of how I see it, and we'll just talk about that timeline. Okay, so Amy, you want to start?
Okay. It was interesting. I just finished up this past summer a study of Daniel, and he's asking what the verse Daniel 9:27 refers to. And if we're going to just stick with strictly what that verse says, is that all you want me to do?
That's fine. Whatever you came up with.
Well, I came up with a lot of things, but what I'll do is then I'll just talk about that, and if y'all have any questions about how she got to that point or whatever, then that's fine too. I don't know that I can explain it all, but I could try. It looks like that she did most of her research and agreed mostly with the New American Commentary, is what she said. She said that the Word Biblical Commentary does differ from this opinion. That
excuse me, who is she?
Beth Moore. I'm sorry, I said I did a Beth Moore study on the book of Daniel.
Right.
And
in 2 sentences, who's Beth Moore?
She's a women's Bible study leader that has she has so many studies on the Word, and she really digs deep and gets into just real the truth of the Word. She sticks to the Word. I've just done a lot of studies under her. And anyway, this was her latest one that came out in June on the book of Daniel. So she pulled several commentaries together. She refers to someone named Baldwin. Stephen Miller wrote the New American Commentary on, Joyce Baldwin from her book entitled Daniel. So there's a couple of things that go into this particular thing on chapter 9. Daniel has a dream, and he prays and asks God to send someone, please, to explain the meaning of his dream. So the angel Gabriel comes to Daniel and explains what the dream means. And if somebody can read Daniel 9:27.
I have it right here.
Good.
Then he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. But in the middle of the week he shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering. And on the wing of abominations shall be one who makes desolate, even until the consummation which is determined poured out on the desolate.
Okay, the NIV talks about the abomination of desolation, which we're talking about the desolation. We're talking about the 7 years. All through this dream, there's 7 sevens, which is 49 years, 62 sevens, which is 434 years, and then it says after this time. And she says that the interpretation she agrees with the most is that there is a gap. There's the church age during that time, and that the last sevens that are talked about in that verse 27 are the tribulation. And the way that will be, that will begin is with a decree. It'll begin with a covenant or a pact for peace between the ruler, the little horn of Daniel 7, which is the beast of Revelation, and Israel. So Israel will make a covenant with the Antichrist, with the beast in Revelation. And it was interesting to me that she said, do you remember the triumphal entry when Jesus cried and said, if you only knew what would bring you peace? And so you look at it and say, they are searching for peace. Israel has been in constant war since the time of AD 70. when, who was it? Titus, I believe, decimated Israel.
Yeah.
And so Israel has been constantly at war since then, and they've been looking for peace. So they make a pact with the Antichrist for peace, when Jesus is really the true way to peace.
Do they know that it's Christ that they're making a pact with, or do they think it's a false prophet?
It's a false prophet. They are totally, totally blinded to who this person is. They have great hope that he will be the person to save Israel, to bring them peace.
So he tricks them.
And so there's a critical midpoint. It talks about halfway through. There's a critical midpoint where, and I don't remember where this comes from, that there's even going to be greater tribulation and more horror after 3.5 years. And that's the time when he will set up the abomination of desolation. Now, I thought that was interesting because they said in, come on, let me find the verse. The abomination of desolation was, Daniel 11:31. Do anybody have an NIV with footnotes?
I do, yeah.
Look at the footnote on that.
On 11:31?
Talks about the Zeus, the temple to Zeus.
Yeah.
Something.
You want to read it?
Yeah.
I'll read the verse quickly.
Oh, yeah.
His armed forces will rise up to desecrate the temple fortress and will abolish the daily sacrifice. Then they will set up the abomination that causes desolation.
So it says, Antiochus,
Sorry.
the fourth would invade the south, but enemy ships would cause him to retreat. On his way back, he plundered Jerusalem, desecrated the temple, and stopped the Jews' daily sacrifices. The temple was desecrated when he sacrificed pigs on an altar erected in honor of Zeus. According to Jewish law, pigs were unclean and were not to be touched. The sacrifice of pig in the temple was the worst kind of insult an enemy could level against the Jews. It happened in 158 to 160 BC.
Okay, so they're saying that comes true. That is an abomination of desolation, but it is a precursor or a foretelling, a foreshadowing of what is to come with the Antichrist or the beast, where he will set up. It says on the wings of the temple, like an outcropping, he will set up an abomination of desolation, much like Antiochus did of Zeus, and declare for the worship. And it will be like that abomination of desolation.
So in order for him to do that, he needs to rebuild the temple?
No, the temple will be
That
rebuilt.
happens in the past. Antiochus is in the past.
Right.
But in order for the Antichrist to do this desecration of the temple...
Well, we don't know if it's the exact same desecration.
I personally don't think you need to have the temple.
Oh.
Personally. Okay.
Some thinkers believe
that you need to
temple
have that you need to have the actual
temple will be
structure. Yeah.
and there still is a cry within the Jerusalem Jews to rebuild the temple.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
But it depends on where you think the temple is.
Well, right.
Which is another whole issue. But anyway, so that was the verse 27 was the second half. The 7 years would be the tribulation. It would start with the pact, with the great hope for peace. Israel will sign a pact with this person, and he will show himself to be the Antichrist. And after 3.5 years, he will set up the abomination of desolation, and the horror will be much worse than it was the first 3.5 years, even though it was. So that was what I came to understand from what she taught.
Okay. A lot of it I agree with.
Just one thing. If you move on to Daniel 12:11, it says, and from the time that the daily sacrifice is taken away and the abomination of desolation is set up, there shall be 1,290 days.
Okay, so that is
Daniel 12:11.
okay. So what about 30 extra days? And she sets it aside as, and I don't have the references on this. She sets that aside. That's the 3.5 years. 30 extra days for resurrection and judgment.
Charles?
I looked into this also, and I used largely internet sources. I did Google search on Daniel 9:27.
Did you really?
And I found a couple interesting websites. One of which gave me a really interesting headline. It says, "Why Daniel 9:27 is essential to understanding prophecy." Keystone to end times prophecy. And the reason that they thought this was a keystone is that the whole chronology is based off of Daniel's weeks. And Daniel introduces that concept back in 9:24, which Amy alluded to. So, as Amy said, Daniel is praying to God and confessing, and then Gabriel comes to him in a vision and says, "I'm going to give you skill and understanding," and then he has this vision. And in verse 24, Gabriel tells him, 70 weeks are determined. Now, what is weeks? Well, clearly weeks is not 7 days, but weeks is 7 of something. And so,
why is it interpreted weeks?
Okay, it's interesting. Although the word, if it had been SHAVOUT in the original Greek, it would have been SHAVUIM, which means sevens. Can be 7 of anything. So the actual Greek was shavuim or whatever, which meant 7. So I don't know why it's translated sometimes weeks. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think that's an interesting concept that even though all of our Bibles use the word weeks, that at least most scholars don't interpret it as 12 of the.
Yeah.
Okay,
so you got to think.
Okay, good.
Like that.
So there's these 70 periods of time, and what starts this is it says for. In verse 24, for your people and your holy city, to finish the transgression, to make an end of all sins. And there are a couple things in there that tie into this chronology. For example, in the middle of 25 it says to restore and build Jerusalem and tell Messiah, the Prince, there shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. Well, what's 7 and 62? Well, it's 69. And so 69 what? Well, between the interval of Daniel and the time of Jesus, if you do some arithmetic, you can find out that the weeks refer to years, and so it just happened to work out that so 70 weeks or 70 times 7 years would be 490 years. So 69 weeks would be 483 years. And it just happened to work out that from the prophecy of Daniel to the time of Jesus was that many years, 483 years.
Well, it started with the issuing of the decree to rebuild Jerusalem, which was done by in Nehemiah 2:1, and the building of the wall only took a year. It talks about in verse 25 or something, the building of the trenches and the. So it was finished in that first 7 years. That's how long it took them to restore the city of Jerusalem from the Nehemiah building of the walls to the restoration.
That's pretty interesting. A pretty good prophecy. And then it says, and then after the 62 weeks, meaning 62 plus the 7, so after the 69 weeks, in verse 26, the Messiah shall be cut off. Which is a good euphemism for death. So that kind of fits. And so that's kind of the first period. And then there's 1 week missing. So in verse 24 he says 70 weeks, and in verse 25 he's talking about what's happened during 69 weeks. And in verse 27 he talks about the last week. And of course you would think that these weeks would come in direct succession, but as Amy alluded to, there was a pause. At least we think there was a pause. Maybe the early disciples and apostles went back and thought, hey, in 7 more years, that's when the end of the age is coming. And I'm sure they were waiting, and the 8th year came, and the 9th year, and they thought, we have to rethink the math. So I think out of Monday morning quarterbacking, in retrospective analysis, we can see that there was this intervening period of what some call the church age. But then in verse 27, I agree with what Amy said, but I'll offer just a few other perspectives. In verse 27, if we all look at our Bibles, it says, then he, and that's a lowercase he. In Hebrew, They didn't have upper and lower cases that correspond to the upper and lower cases that we as Christians look at our Bibles. Uppercase usually refers to Jesus or God, and lowercase usually doesn't. So this is a little bit of inference. But the he, I think, out of convenience, would refer to the last person that was directly referred to. So let's go back to verse 26. And after the 62 weeks, the Messiah shall be cut off, but not for himself. So we're talking about the Messiah there. And the people of the prince who is to come. So now we're talking about the prince who is to come. That's who the he will refer to. The people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. This is the destruction. So we're talking about the guy who is the Antichrist. And then he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week, in verse 25. So the he refers to the Antichrist here. The Antichrist shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. It's not the Messiah, who's in the beginning of verse 26, but the bad guy who's in the latter part of 26. I think we can reasonably surmise that. So the bad guy is confirming a covenant with many for 1 week. This is another week of meaning 7 years. I'm not sure that any of us know for sure, but it would fit with the chronology that was in the other previous verses. But in the middle of the week, meaning 3.5 years, which interestingly corresponds with what William pointed out in the end of Daniel. The very end, the 3.5 years, corresponds very nicely with what was in verse 12, chapter 12, verse 11, with the 1,290 days. So the chronology is starting to piece together here in a jigsaw sort of way. But in the middle of the week, he shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering. What does that mean? Well, now, at least in my Bible, that's a capital He. He shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering. That infers that sacrifice and offering, which customs and actual commandments, had been reinstituted, that they had come back again. So how can we make sense of that? Because most of our Jewish friends these days are not doing sacrifices and offerings. Well, perhaps those traditions had been reinstituted. Maybe the temple had been rebuilt, maybe covenants with the Jewish people. Maybe the Jewish people were convinced that now's the time to rebuild the temple, now's the time to redo sacrifices. I've been talking with some of my Orthodox Jewish friends, specifically an anesthesiologist who I love to debate with. And I would ask him, why don't you all just build a new temple? I mean, that's clearly where God is, right? The temple. I'm kind of provoking him. And he says, well, we have, there's no prophet who's telling us that it's time to rebuild it. There's not a broad consensus among the rabbis that it is time to rebuild it. We're waiting for a sign, and then we're going to rebuild. And so maybe the Antichrist is deceiving them that it is time to rebuild the temple, to reinstitute sacrifices. But then
to rebuild the temple, so maybe
the temple curtain was torn. So I just as a lead-in to show how the temple is no longer necessary. But I can argue with them using different logic. But nevertheless, so that Jesus will bring an end. I'm using the word Jesus. Daniel doesn't. But in the middle of verse 27, Jesus will bring an end to the sacrifice and offering. It makes sense that the he would be a different he. There's one he made a covenant with those people, and now there's this other guy who's changing things. There's a change. So perhaps Jesus is bringing an end to the sacrifice and offering, and on the wing of the abomination shall be the one who makes desolate.
interesting symbolism that you're having this argument from anesthesiologists, which is typically behind.
This is totally a literary interpretation. I don't see any context that would make it go from one he to another he. Because we know the final he is we know the final he is that guy.
See, our he is not capitalized.
Yeah, mine's
oh, is that right?
Yeah, mine's not capitalized. So in the middle of the 7, you'll put an end to sacrifice. Little he.
Yeah, and that's not an essential point.
Right.
Certainly, I don't have enough knowledge, and maybe Bob will give us more insight. But I think that the main thing I wanted to reemphasize that Amy brought up is that this is a very nice chronology.
Yeah.
That although there are many references in Matthew and in Revelation that build on this, that this is a nice framework. Then we can attach other scriptures to this, and as Bob shows in week number 1, that they all do add up pretty well. But this is the baseline upon which all the other scriptures can be nicely applied.
I'll tell you one thing that was absolutely fascinating to me, talking about the chronology. The Jewish calendar is on a 360-day lunar year. And if you actually add it all up for the 434 years, the 69 sevens is Jesus' triumphal entry into Jerusalem. And that is the precursor to his crucifixion, is the triumphal entry.
And that 1 week then is the week Palm Sunday to...
March 5th was the date that Nehemiah 2:1 sets the date for the beginning, for the issuing of the decree. I mean, this is all 173,880 days on the Jewish calendar is the day of the triumphal entry. When he says, if you had only known what would bring you peace. I just loved it. I love this study. It was just amazing.
Okay. Well, Amy, you weren't here when we did the study on the 70 weeks. So we have it on the video, so you'll be able to take that home. And Charles, you were here. I'm surprised that you're still with the old way of thinking, but that's okay. Anyway, we're going to look at this timeline, okay? There's a lot here. There's a lot on this first page, this one page. All of the stuff from the 70-year Babylonian captivity, the Edict of Cyrus, the 7 weeks of decades, the 40-year gap, the 62 weeks of months of Jesus' life, and then the 40 years after he died, and then the temple was destroyed. All of that we covered already in the first week. Okay? Now we're up to 927, where a covenant is made with many for 1 week. Now, I don't know if you all remember back, I don't know how long ago I sent it out, but when I discovered that the Oslo Accord that began in September of 93, and it basically ended in September of 2000, that Oslo Accord, I think, very strongly, is the covenant that is made with many for 1 week. Number one, it has earmarking on it, or the markings on it, of exactly 7 years, 7 Hebrew years. I have it on
And
here.
what is the Oslo Accord?
Yeah, I've heard about it, but what are the exact
Okay, and just look here for the dates first. 28 Elul 5753, that's the Jewish date that started. And 28 Elul 5760.
I can't find this. Where?
It's a 7-year event at the
It's in the middle.
Okay. Gotcha. Thanks.
What happened on September 2000 was Ariel Sharon went up to the Temple Mount, and he did something that offended the Palestinians. Basically, I think he was claiming it to be, Jewish property, whatever. I don't really remember exactly, but whatever he did, it sort of like took this Oslo agreement and snapped it, made it a breach where nobody would recognize it anymore.
And what was it in the first place?
I know it was with
Okay.
Clinton and Arafat.
Yes.
I remember it happening. I
Yes.
just remember
Yes.
the
It
details
was.
of it.
I mean, it was a big
It
thing.
was finally they broke through and it was peace in the Middle East.
Yeah.
I remember
That's
that.
what they
But what
said.
were the details of
The
it?
detail, the whole idea of that covenant was that they wanted to give for the Palestinians a self-sustaining government, and they wanted to give for Israel peace. Israel was going to get peace, and the Palestinians were going to get a self-sustaining government. Now each one had to give up something. Okay, what Israel has to give up is land. Okay, what the Palestinians have to give up is stop the fighting. Okay, that's what they have to give up. They have to stop fighting. So it's a peace covenant. It is a peace covenant. And, the Antichrist is described in Daniel 8 as, by peace he shall destroy many. The Oslo Accord, they call it the Oslo Accord because it was developed in Oslo, Norway. And it was developed not with the permission of all Israelis. They didn't even vote on it. They didn't even want it. They didn't even know that what was going on. This was all done in secret, okay? And they just it was introduced to them. It's too bad we got this covenant, I think. And what was I thinking? So it really was very, very bad for the Israeli people. I mean, they gave part of it. I mean, they were giving the Arabs guns, and they were shooting. They were giving them the guns, and they were getting shot at with their own guns. Okay, I mean, and 2005, August of 2005, you had the Gaza Strip was. They had to get out of their houses. Jewish people had to get out of their houses, and they destroyed it all and gave it to the Palestinians. And that was done as part of this covenant that was breached. The guy who wrote this covenant, his name was Yossi Balin. He wrote an article that sort of like defined, when I say that it was breached when Ariel Sharon, he was the guy who said that. He said, this thing was on thin ice ever since it started. It was on thin ice, and he gives the examples of all of the things that happened that was making it thin and weak and not stable. And he said, but when Sharon went to the Temple Mount, it was the ice broke. So the guy who wrote it was the guy who put the beginning and the end time on this thing to make it 7 years. Now, Daniel 9:27 says that.
Bob, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So the Oslo Accord was not something that said we're going to have peace into the future. It was something that said for 7 years we're going to give you this land.
No, it said nothing about 7 years.
Yeah, I don't know if it's actually officially over.
It's not officially over. It's not officially over, exactly.
Maybe culturally or socially
Exactly.
over.
Exactly. But it's broken. It's broken, okay? And it says that he's going to come and confirm it. He's going to strengthen it. He's going to refer to it. When they kicked those people out of Gaza Strip, they were referring to it, okay? So it's still being referred to. It's still being talked about. The politicians still mention it, even though it's sort of like a dead thing. You know, it's dead, but not dead. Anyway, so when I read this, there's two ways of looking at it. Okay, when he says he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. First of all, the word many in there in Hebrew is rabim. Okay, the covenant was made with a guy named Rabin, Yitzhak Rabin. It's like just the M and the N, which is almost the same word. It's the same root word. So I thought that was interesting. Anyway, he shall confirm the covenant with many with 1 week. Now this next part, and in the midst of the week, that's the part that's confusing. I personally, now there's two ways to look at it. If you're going to go at that this is the covenant. One, he's referring to the words of the covenant of 1 week. That he's referring to the words that are in the midst of this covenant. That is one for 1 week. That's one way. The other way is it's a totally different week, which is actually more easier to understand. It's a totally different week. Now we're talking about the week of Daniel 12:11 that William brought up. Let's just look at that again. It says, and from the time that the daily, now there's no sacrifices in italics. The word sacrifice is not there. From the time that the daily shall be taken away, and the abomination that makes desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days. So that begins sort of a beginning point and a midpoint of a 7-year period. The midpoint is the abomination that causes desolate. The beginning point is taking away the daily. All right? Now, all throughout Daniel, the word daily is used, maybe 5 times, I think. I don't remember exactly. But there's one time when the word sacrifice is used. The word sacrifice is used in Daniel 9:27. Okay? Sacrifice as in blood sacrifice. That word is connected to blood being sacrificed. Okay? Now, the other word there, oblation, where King James has oblation, some other people. What did you have?
You shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering.
Offering. So he had offering. Did you have offering? Anyway, I heard offering, and there was another word that was used. But basically, if you look at 9, if you look at the very beginning of 9, he says, it was at the time of the evening oblation, and he uses that phrase. He was in his evening oblation when he started to get the answer. Okay? And so what was he doing? What was he doing when he got it? He was what? What do you think he meant when he said, I was in my evening oblation? Praying. He was praying. He was praying. Right. Now Daniel was at a time when he was in Babylon, right? He wasn't in Israel where there was a temple. He wasn't in Jerusalem where there was a temple. There wasn't any sacrifice. It's just like today's times. There's no sacrifice. There is ritual prayer. Ritual daily prayer. Where is that taken? If you were in Israel, if you were in Jerusalem, where would that ritual daily prayer be? At the Wailing Wall, at the Temple Mount it's called. That was where Sharon went. That's their sacred spot. Okay? That's where they do their oblations, you might say. But they don't do sacrifice. There's no blood sacrifice. Okay? So now this is a peace, remember this is a peace covenant, 927, it's a peace covenant. Two sides, they each have to give up something. I think that this is going to mean, I'm going to make a prediction here, I think what this is saying is that the Jews will have to give up their daily praying. The Wailing Wall is going to be taken away from them. It's going to be a horror of horrors, but that's what this Antichrist is going to force upon them. Okay? Now what about the Arabs? The Arabs have to stop the sacrifice. The Arabs have to... How do Arabs sacrifice now? Blood sacrifice. Suicide bombings. That's what they have to stop. That's their part. They teach suicide bombings to all their children when they're 2 or 3 years old. They say that's a good thing to do. Allah will love you. It's not really a sacrifice to God as we know God. God is not asking that little boy to do that. But in his mind, it is because his parents are telling him, because he's raised that way, in his mind, because he doesn't know the truth, it is a sacrifice to God. And he just calls it a sacrifice. He doesn't say it's a holy sacrifice. He doesn't say it's a good sacrifice. He just says he stops the sacrifice.
So you think he'll stop the suicide bombing and the praying?
And the praying, yeah, right.
So like wipes out all that stuff.
Right. I think that's what the two items are in this covenant that they get from the covenant that is this Oslo Accord. It's in there. That Oslo Accord is part public and part private. There's a lot in there that nobody knows about except the people that wrote it.
And then how do you know about it?
I say I'm making a prediction.
But I'm saying, how do we know that there's private stuff in the...
Oh, I saw that on the internet. You know, I looked up what it was.
So we can't read the accord.
You can read the public stuff.
So is there a disclaimer on it that says there's a portion of this is public, a portion is private?
Well, anything that you read is going to be the public stuff.
Oh, but I mean, people, the internet, you have to be suspicious of what you read on the internet.
Okay, but you get the right source and you can see. There's
I have a question, Bob. So wasn't the Antichrist supposed to be the one that made this accord?
I think he had a lot to do. I think he's alive right now, and I think he had a lot to do with it as Antichrist the man. Now, don't forget, there's Antichrist the conglomerate, the corporate, and there's Antichrist the man. Antichrist the man is the mouthpiece for the Antichrist the corporate. The way the Pope is the mouthpiece for the Catholic entity, church, which is made up of many people. The Antichrist corporate is made up of many people, and there's an Antichrist man that does the...
And the corporate are all the people that follow that Antichrist man.
Yeah.
There's the spirit of the Antichrist.
So, the spirit of the Antichrist could have made this accord.
Yes.
Essentially, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But like I said, I think the Antichrist the man is alive now, and I think he had a lot to do with it. A lot to do with it. Okay, so...
So just to review a little bit, you think that this covenant that's in verse 27 is this Oslo thing?
Yeah, I think it happened very
And
much.
that the 3.5 years we're right now in the midst of 3.5
No,
years.
no, nothing happened in 1997, which was 3.5 years in the middle of that, in the
That's
middle
a
of...
broken covenant, basically. You just said it's a dead...
Yes, a dead covenant. But in the middle of that, nothing happened. Nothing happened really, as far as nothing was taken away, no abomination of desolation happened.
What are we doing? We're just waiting right now?
It's just a dead thing that's out there that lasts 7 years, that has within it the words that Antichrist will use. He'll confirm it and use those words to do what he's going to do here. And that's going to begin, as Daniel 12:11 says, that's going to begin that last 7 years.
So this is an extra 7 years.
This is another...
That was an extra.
Yes. Okay, now let's look at the timeline here.
So you were saying that in the private part of the Oslo Accord is something where they're going to take the Wailing Wall away from the Israelites in exchange for stopping the suicide bomb?
Yes.
Okay.
That's beginning. That's the beginning.
That's a prediction, though, because we don't know the private parts.
Right. Right.
And you think that the Antichrist person might be a Jewish leader or somebody who helped work on the Oslo Accords?
No, I didn't say that.
Not a Jewish leader, but
I don't think he's a Jewish leader.
Romanian.
I don't think.
No.
We're gonna get into
the Roman Empire or whatever.
We're gonna get into Antichrist the man on another one of these week sessions.
So why do you think that he had something to do with that?
Because
Prophecy says he has to be working.
he's definitely working behind the scenes right now.
I'm curious. So I think this is fascinating that you came up with this. I'm wondering if anybody else is also any other schools of prophecy are also calling out the Oslo Accord.
I never saw it. Never saw it. Well, most of the stuff I never saw. Anyway, the last 7 years is the last part of this diagram. I do want to talk about it. I got this. What happened was, I said to myself, you have the seals, you have the Antichrist covenant thing, starting taking away the daily. You have all of these concepts and things. What would happen if the seals and this last 7 years were in the same chronology? That's what got me started with this timeline. So I lined up the first seal, right? And just hypothetically, now you see on this, there's a little box underneath the name here on the left-hand side. It says, note, all times provided for seals, trumpets, and vials are hypothetical examples only for interest only. Because, and the reason why I'm pointing that out and making it emphatic is because we're not supposed to add to the words of the book of Revelation. We're not supposed to take away from them, and we're not supposed to add to them. It's not said that the first seal lasts 360 days. It's not said. It doesn't say that. I said that. And just to try to, put all these numbers together and make them fit. And it's all, as you can see, it's all going to fit if you do that.
And 360 is the Hebrew year.
360 is 12 30 days. It's not exactly a Hebrew year because it's 12 30-day months, and in reality there's 6 30-day months and 6 29-day months. This is prophetic and not really reality. But every there's a 13th month. Every 19 years, it happens 7 times. Within 19 years, there's a 13th month. So I think that the 1290 is an extra month, because in reality, there's usually, after 2 years, there's the third year is usually a 13th month year. So you have that extra month there. Okay, let's look at the middle box. It's 1260 days. The 2 witnesses prophesy. That's Revelation 11:3. Also for 1260 days, the woman is fed in the wilderness, and she's in Revelation 12:6. 42 months, which is 30 times 42, is 1260 days. 42 months, so it's the same time frame as 1260 days. And the beast blasphemes with power in Revelation 13:5. Also, for 42 months, the holy city is tread upon in Revelation 11:2. Now, if you notice, I have them all beginning, that time frame, beginning with the first seal and ending with somewhere near the midpoint of the 4th seal. And then you have the box underneath that box, which says for interest only. That whole thing, for interest only, I begin them as at the first seal, and I sort of like align them all together as happening, all events happening at the same time and beginning at the first seal. And also the beginning of the first seal, I say that the 7-year covenant is confirmed, Daniel 9:27. Now notice in that box I say there is no direct verse that links them like this. Again, this is for interest only. This is how I see it, and I'm sharing with you my vision of how I see this. I don't want to add to the book of Revelation or to the book of any part of the Bible for that matter. Okay, so you notice in the 4th seal that there are 210 days for the first half and 15 days for the second half. 210 days is 30 days more than half of a year. Half a year is 180 days, and there's 210 days, I say, for the first half of the 4th seal. So there's that extra 30 days. And you can see, for example, the 2 witnesses prophesy for 1,260 days. So they no longer prophesy from the end of their prophesying, an extra 30 days comes the abomination of desolation. So there's a 30-day grace period, you might say, from, again, the beast doesn't blaspheme anymore with power against us. So it's like there's a 30-day grace period. And in that 30 days, the 2 witnesses get killed, and then they get resurrected, and then they go out to heaven, and everybody celebrates that they're out of here. Because the whole world celebrates, because they never liked them. They didn't like the truth. They preferred the lie. They prefer their own lives rather than the life that Jesus has given them. Anyway, so there's that interesting thing where you get to the middle, there's that extra 30 days. You have this Antichrist ruling with power for 1,260 days, or 42 months, which is 1,260. He's ruling for 42 months, and then there's this extra month. And what I personally think that that's a month of where he's leaving us alone. That's the month where everybody will say peace and safety. You know, because it says everybody will say peace and safety, and then destruction will come. Okay. I think all of that happens in that last 30-day period right before the abomination of desolation, which is caused when Antichrist says, I am God. When he sits in the holy, it says, Jesus says, when he sits in the holy place. That's the reason why I don't think that there has to be a temple, because it just has to be a holy place. It may just be at the wailing wall. I don't know. It may be in his temple, where he thinks is holy, which I think may be the pyramid of Jesus. Something like that. I don't know. But it does say that this horrible destruction is going to come upon the people of Jerusalem.
So the idea is that we've had this gap, or this long time, the church age. Then we had this covenant for 7 years, and then there's another 7-year time frame that's going to start sometime thereafter.
Yes.
Maybe around the time that we're at.
Right.
And so now we're trying to fit basically the things that happened in Revelation into this second 7-year span.
Yes.
That's okay. Yeah. Just trying to figure out.
Yeah, the second 7-year span, I believe, is the last 7 years.
Okay.
And it consists of 7 seals, and the 7 seals, the 7th seal opens up 7 trumpets, the 7th trumpet opens up 7 vials. Okay? Now, I like I said, I gave each seal a year, right? Until I came to the 4th seal, which is the pale horse. And within the 4th seal, the pale horse, is when the abomination of desolation happens. And that's when there'll be great tribulation, such as the earth has never seen before, nor ever will. Okay?
So if you're saying that 7-year was ended at 2000, the breaking of the covenant, when does the first seal open?
Sometime in the future after that point.
So what will open it?
What will open it?
Yeah.
Well, the seal will be opened, that's in heaven. The seal gets opened in heaven. On earth...
But what will start that?
Oh, well, the taking away of the daily. Okay? And the stopping of the sacrifice for the suicide bombers. I think. So anyway, we're up to the 4th seal, and this is where the abomination and the Great Tribulation starts, in the middle of that, right?
So we've talked about at least 2 abominations of desolation now.
Right? No.
Oh, there wasn't? I thought somebody was saying that when the temple was abolished back in...
Oh, yeah, that's right. That is a type. I agree with her. That is a type.
Precursor to it.
A precursor to what happened, what will happen.
So how do we know definitions for what an abomination of desolation is? Why do we know? Is it only sacrificing a pig in the temple, or?
No.
How do we
let the reader understand.
Remember the Matthew verse, right? Let the reader understand.
There's it's referenced in, I mean, you don't. Jesus talks about it in Matthew 24, so I just read it. But I don't think he defines it. He says, so when you see standing in the holy place, the abomination, quote, the abomination that causes desolation, spoken of through the prophet Daniel, let the reader understand, then let those from Judea flee to the mountains. And then it goes on, like, no one on the roof, come down, and you've got to be really freaked out when that happens. But it doesn't define what it is.
Right, but
I mean, you could almost translate it into the thing that brings it all down. I mean, you don't know what it is, but you know it's a really bad thing that
an abomination of God.
It causes the end.
I thought that was
like
that quote that you said that the 7 years later, whatever Rome came to destroy the temple.
That it could. I mean,
Well, set up a statue of Zeus. That was the abomination of desolation there.
Oh,
so I think they're saying if it was a precursor, so somehow it will be something that will be an abomination to God, that will be worshipped, that will desolate the
And I think we should be clear about that. I'm on the same page with you as far as I do think that there is one more 7-year period that needs to happen, but some people believe that 7, or the final 7 has already been completed. Right?
Who believes that? If it was already completed, then we would be, there wouldn't be any more time.
Well, this is occurring now.
No, I don't. What?
Okay, so they said that the prophecy was fulfilled in the past by Antiochus, that it was fulfilled in the past with the destruction of the temple in 70 AD, or the prophecy of the time. Like Tim LaHaye wrote about this in the companion piece for the Left Behind series. Like, there is a group of Christians who believe that there is no more 7, that the 7s are done in the prophecy of Daniel.
Okay.
I don't think it's the
leading
belief, but it is a belief out there.
Okay.
But
yeah, well, I disagree with that.
Don, can I just ask a question? Jesus, during his crucifixion, the temple curtain was torn, which I think symbolically we're led to believing is that Jesus, that God no longer dwells within the physical structure, but rather the Holy Spirit, which then came back to dwell within us.
Yes.
That we are that He lives within us.
We're the living temple.
Yeah, and so is the physical structure of building, like Solomon built, is that even important to God anymore? Because we are the temple now. The church is the temple.
Exactly.
So
that's why, that's part of my thinking of why I don't think that there'll be another temple for this Antichrist to stand in.
It's not important.
There is a verse. I mean, Paul talks about when he shall stand in the temple. And it's a Greek word that means shrine or something, but it's translated temple to us. And Jesus called it the holy place. So, I mean, it's not clear where exactly this Antichrist is, and maybe he's going to be standing amongst us and calling himself God amongst us. I don't know. That's another thought.
With us being the Holy Place, does the Holy Spirit indwells us?
Yeah. I mean, maybe that, but I don't know. I think if he stood at the Wailing Wall and he made this proclamation that he's God, I think that would fit. Or if he was standing on the top of the Pyramid of Giza, meaning that he's going to be the capstone of that great pyramid, great temple.
As I step back from the scripture a little bit, and I try to imagine God, which is a very dangerous thing to do. We are the pinnacle of His creation.
Yes.
As people, He wants a relationship with us.
Yes.
Earthly temples and towers, God despises. Babylon is despised. And so this is a war over spirits, over hearts. That's what God really cares about.
Right.
And so that's why I think that looking at a piece of geography like Jerusalem, God who made this massive universe of galaxies and solar systems, I find it hard to believe that God really actually cares about real estate. I mean, he creates real estate. I mean, he's very efficient at it.
Yeah.
So, but what he really values is hearts more than real estate.
That's right.
So, which is why it seems it's hard for me to understand why, or to look at Scripture in terms of actual real estate, why actual real estate is so important.
Right. The thing that gets God, number one, I don't think God's going to be very happy that He takes away He stops His people, His Jewish people, from praying. I don't think He's going to be happy about that.
Daniel did need the Wailing Wall. Daniel could pray.
But still, I don't think He's going to be happy about that. And I don't think He's going to be happy when this guy puts himself in some holy place, wherever it is, and says he's God.
Of course not, but isn't He unhappy that they're praying not through Jesus in the first place? I mean, isn't the prayer...
Why are the Jews important anymore? Like, I mean, obviously, as potential...
They are blinded. They are blinded.
They're still His chosen people.
They're still His chosen people.
Yeah?
They're blinded. As a matter of fact, I have on here Leah's week and Rachel's week. I don't know if you noticed them yet. Why did I say that?
Hold on, Bob. Yeah, Bob.
What
I know who knows the answer.
You remember when Jacob, who did Jacob love, and who did he want to marry? Rachel. He loved Rachel. He wanted to marry Rachel. He was going to work 7 years for Rachel. He did work 7 years for Rachel.
And 7 more.
He got into the tent, and it wasn't Rachel. It was Leah. Right? The father did that. The white Laban, his name Laban means white. The white father did that to him. So he was all bummed out, and he worked another 7 years for Rachel. Okay? And I think that's exactly what's happening. Jesus came for the Jew first. He came for Israel. His love and his passion was for them, his people, who were his people ever since Jacob and Isaac and Jacob and the 12 tribes and all throughout Egypt and Moses and David and all of that. That's all, his dealings with them. He had a love affair with them. And he came for them. He came for them first. As it said, that woman that wasn't Jewish, she said, I get the crumbs, your faces. Jesus only spoke to them when he was here. He didn't speak to anybody else. He spoke to the Jews. Yeah, he spoke, yeah, right.
Well,
yeah.
And he didn't heal people who were not Jewish.
Yes, he did. But mainly it was
He
Jews.
wanted his people Israel, but...
And the apostles were all Jewish, so a lot of the 3,000, the 5,000, they were all Jewish. I mean, it wasn't like there was nobody that heard. Okay? But then the curtain was opened to the Gentiles, and then the gospel started to be preached to all the Gentiles, and the majority of Christians are now Gentile believers. And I look at that as Leah. Okay? I look at that as Leah. And between the first seal and the last trumpet, I look at that as Jesus working for what he thought was Rachel, but he got Leah. He got the Gentile church. Okay? And then Rachel comes in at the last, the last final week of the 70 weeks. The final week, I think it's the week of vials, which happens, after the last trumpet. Okay? And that's when he's here, and that's when Jerusalem is now a holy city again, because he's here. See? And that's why you can count that. You can start the clock on the last week. Anyway, I was at the Pale Horse at one time. That was the fourth seal. Okay, and so in the middle of that seal, we start the desolation of abomination of desolation, and that begins the great horror. And the days are shortened for the elect's sake. Okay? So what do I do here? I go from a year, each seal gets a year's time, to each seal gets a month. Okay? And now, the days, there's only 15 more days left in that month, in that seal. So that pale horse only gets 15 days as soon as the abomination happens. Then we get to the fifth seal. That only has 30 days. That's the great trial seal. We're gonna one of the weeks we're gonna actually go into more details on each seal and each trumpet and the vial, but that's another time. Anyway, so we have the sixth seal that gets 30 days, and the seventh seal that gets 30 days. But the seventh seal blows the trumpet, and we got more time. Okay. The first trumpet. No. I just hypothetically again. I just threw these down, and it worked the first time I did it. I said, let's try a season, which is 3 months for the first 4 fields. First 4 trumpets, I'm sorry. But I gave them each 90 days, and then I came to the 5th trump, and that has within it a time. The time is actually inscribed in that description of that trumpet, where it has 5 months. That's when the locust thing meant for 5 months. So I gave that 150 days. Then we come to the 6th trumpet, and that has time elements in it where it's given for a year, a month, a day, and an hour. All of those time elements. And then the 7th trumpet, time is no more. He blows his trumpet and he swears to God and he says that time is no more. So, being that I figured that 12,090 was the midpoint. At the end of that 7th trumpet, we still have another 280 days. So we have 7 vials. So I gave each vial 40 days. Now 40 days is for each vial turns out to be somewhat interesting because first of all, 7 times 40 is the time of conception from conception to birth. All right? 40 weeks, conception to birth. That's one thing. And what's happening here is Israel, the prophecy about Israel getting resurrected, I think that they're going to get resurrected at the same time we are. He told his disciples, know ye not that you're going to judge the 12 tribes of Israel. So they're going to judge the 12 tribes of Israel. That means they got to be there too. One thing. Another thing is we got the prophecy that says they're going to be resurrected. So I think that they're going to be with us, in this last 280 days. Now it's 280 days, but time is no more. So they're just position days. They're just days to position for the prophecy. And they're kind of like weird because the millennium, the 1,000 years is in there too. Okay? A day is as 1,000 years. So, that whole thing. It's also called sometimes in prophecy as the last day, or that day. So it's a lot happens in that final week. It's Daniel's 70th week, I think. A lot happens.
You've put a tremendous amount of work into this. Based on this, do you think that you or us or anybody else could accurately predict when the actual end day will be, or when the abomination of desolation will be? Or will nobody know the day or the hour?
Well, nobody knows the day or the hour when Jesus returns. And then if you notice here, on the 6th trumpet, you have 3 days and 23 hours that are unaccounted for. So Jesus could come in any way. I think so. 3 hours and 3 days. I think so. I think if you see.
Well, we got to figure out when the abomination is, though. Isn't it?
And again, I appreciate the time it is, but when you say you assign, and I know you're even commenting on that,
it's just hypothetical.
Yeah,
so by choosing those numbers, that's how you get to those 3 days that are unaccounted for. Right?
Yeah,
so,
but some of these things are written like days of the 12,090, the 12,060, the 42 months.
Yeah,
that's all.
you just divided it up to get to the end.
And then notice the second half, because there are 2 times when the prophecy talks about time, times, and the dividing of times. So when does that come in? And how do you know which is that the beginning or that last part, the beginning part? I think it's the end part. And if you notice the terminology, time, times, dividing of times. Now typically, everybody takes that to be 3.5 years, which basically it is 3.5 years. But I say, because the time is 1 year, times 2 years, and then a half a year. So that's 3.5 years. But I think it's even deeper than that. I think because we got the times of the seal, which is a month. We got the times of the trumpets. Now, if you look at the times of the trumpets that we have here, the sixth trumpet, for example, has hour, day, month, a year. Has all those times. Okay? So you have the time of the seal, you have the times of the trumpets, and even the seventh trumpet, time is no more. In the seventh trumpet, time is no more. So that's even a time. No more time. You know, we're in this different dimension now, different space-time place. Then you have the times of the vials, the more times.
You have the modern day cap starting at 1993.
Yeah.
On this timeline. And where is, how much time from there to the time ends is in between?
I think you were saying that it just depends on the taking away of the daily.
Yeah.
When that starts,
Yeah.
that starts the countdown.
Do you think that's the first seal being?
Yes.
Bob, to wrap us up, we've covered so many times and dates. It would be helpful. Give me a good take-home message to kind of bring this together.
Okay.
What do you think are the most important things for me to really dwell upon?
Okay. Just one more time that I missed here. 2,300 days, the sanctuary shall be cleansed. That's Daniel 8:14. So I think that if you look at it here, that's from the beginning of the first seal to the end of the last trumpet. It happens to be on this particular map here, this timeline. It happens to be exactly 2,300 days. And the sanctuary shall be cleansed. Remember we were talking about we're the sanctuary, we're the temple, and we're going to be going through all of this hardship. And we're going to be gaining patience, and our robes are going to be washed, and we're going to be cleansed, and we're the bride of Christ, and we're going to be the bride, preparing ourselves for our husband who's coming. So that fits there.
So that's 7 years.
That's not exactly. That's minus the 280 days. That time is no longer on the last week. Okay. The other thing is. Nobody really ever has an explanation. I don't ever saw it. But what does it mean that blessed is he that comes after 1,335 days? Okay, what does that mean? I mean that's right after Daniel 12:11. Comes Daniel 12:12.
From your chart, I'm getting
From the chart, it's right before the sixth seal. And the sixth seal, men hide from the wrath of the Lamb. So the fifth seal, they're in. Remember this, if you remember the sixth seal, there's an altar, and they're underneath the altar. And how long are you going to avenge our soul? You know, we died for you. And we'll get into the actual details of that. But the fifth seal is bad for us. The sixth seal is good for us. The sixth seal. They're worried about our lamb coming, our militant lamb. You know, he's not a meek lamb, he's a militant lamb. They're afraid of him, they're hiding under the rocks. So blessed is he that waits until, that fits that too. See? Everything just
So in that
fits.
scenario, seals coincide with 7 years.
Yeah.
That's your big argument.
Well.
Oh, no, I mean, but I wouldn't say the scripture says that the seals are 7 years.
Right.
That's tying Revelations in with Daniel.
Right.
So, it's interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so the big wrap-up is that we're going to get into the details on the next studies. Where are we right now? We're somewhere between with the 7-year covenant that was made with many for 1 week already happened, and we're about to see the first seal open.
That's all.
before. So I said that it was going to be confirmed by the Antichrist. He's going, right now it's a week thing, but it's still
well,
not
I'm talking about the time frame, because Daniel's predicted there's one more 7 left.
Right.
I thought you were saying that that's not the Oslo report, that's a precursor, and that this 7 years are going to happen later.
Yes. But but you see here, I think the last week, the final week of Daniel, is after Jesus comes back on the. I'm saying Jesus comes back on the 7th trumpet. Okay, and that opens up the 7 vials.
Right.
That's the final week. That's what I think is the final week.
But you're still trying to fit the seals into 7 years.
Yeah, but you notice that, the time, that's because the times are given to us, 42 months.
Right.
And that's the midpoint is 12,090. That's half of 7 years.
Right.
So there's another half.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. And then also, another thing to point out is a lot of people talk about Daniel 7 being the Antichrist. I don't think so. We'll get into that too. Because there's 2 beasts of Daniel 13. There's a beast. There's 2 beasts. There's the Daniel 7 and there's the Daniel 8. Okay? And I think Daniel 8 is the Antichrist, and then Daniel 7 is another beast that's referenced in Daniel 13, and we'll get into who I think that is.
Email out just a little, if you want us to do any reading or homework or preparation.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Bob. I know you put a lot of work in this.
Okay. So that's it.